Now we're going to look at a second vacancy announcement for Objective 6. So in this vacancy announcement, we're going to look at, it's a security specialist information. So in the OPM search, in the classification handbook, what you would look for is information security specialist. Now this is a 0080 GS13 position or GG13 position. But what we also want to look at is it is an Army position. It's at headquarters AMC. This is the actual announcement number. Again, if you use USA Jobs, that number will automatically locate or relocate into your resume. This is the pay salary. But again, the most important piece is the closing date. So again, you'll have to look further in the vacancy to make sure that it's Eastern Standard Time, but normally it's midnight Eastern Standard Time, and it would be September 28th is when this actually closed. So what you would need to do is you would want to talk to the POC at the very bottom to figure out, did they receive your resume, all the pages, and all the documentation so your resume is not disqualified or your application is not disqualified. In this position, it's a 13, GG13 0080. So in the OPM classification guide, the position guide that we showed you earlier, you would need to go in and look at how many points qualifies your resume to make the GS13 level. And now you're ready to actually apply. So again, if you use the highest number in those OPM guides, then that will walk you through this. Now, this is a full-time, but it's accepted service, which is fantastic because it's a little better for those that have a lot of experience versus high degree. I mean, obviously the degree helps, but in accepted service, one of the benefits through the analysis is that they will accept more times than not your experience over a degree. So that's why you really, if you can, use the keyword accepted service when searching for jobs. Now you can look up competitive service as well because you'll find some in there, but overall I've always had good luck with accepted service positions. Now this is a term position not to exceed 4 years. So if you're willing and you want to get into the government, this is a good opportunity to get in. If you're already in as a permanent employee, then you would really have to discuss and decide yourself, do you want to go from a permanent position to a term position that may or may not stay after 4 years. Now according to this, they say there's only one vacancy. When we go further down into this vacancy, we will see if that's actually the case. Now this vacancy says that it will be located at Redstone Arsenal, Alabama. If you know somebody in Redstone, then my personal strategy would be to use an Alabama address, a Redstone, Alabama address. But if not, it doesn't really hurt you to use whatever address you have right now. But the benefit is if you do have a relative that you will probably be staying with in Alabama, if you were to get this position, that's the address that I would use. It's just a strategy. Who may apply? Well, all U.S. citizens, everyone can apply to this position, all U.S. citizens and status candidates. Now we'll look at further down in the vacancies all the different types of status candidates that can apply, and then you would have to go to the OPM site to determine your criteria and whether you qualify to be one of the status candidates or not. Here it says security clearance is top secret SCI. Again, further down, we're going to have to read and see, is it a current active top secret, or does it only require the ability to obtain a top secret SCI? More times than not, it's the ability to obtain. But again, if it's an active, then obviously you're going to have to have an active. And this position is not a supervisory. So again, this is a GS13 position, 0080, non-supervisory. So therefore, you would not need to look at the OPM's guide, the handbook, for how to classify supervisory positions. If this were a supervisory position, then you would have to not only go to the OPM classification guide for the 0080 and qualify your resume as a GS-13, but you would also, in addition to that, have to qualify your resume and add the keywords for the supervisory position. But since this is not a supervisory position, you won't have to do that extra step. DSIP's position, employees occupying DSIP's position are in an accepted service and must adhere to the code Title 10. You'll look through this and, behooves you to read the instructions. Strategy-wise, you know that the position is actually located in Redstone, but now you know the actual command and the location within the command, the G2, that this position is located in. If you know somebody within the G2, this is where your networking comes in. Do you know anyone in the material command? Do you know anyone in the G2 security division shop within Redstone? The closer you get to knowing somebody in there, the better it is. So you at least can figure out what their vision is, what the U.S. Army Material Command strategy is, anything that helps, their strategic plan, anything like that, that may help in describing your experience within your resume and application so that your resume and application actually meet the strategic plan of the organization you're applying to. It's just another strategy that you might want to think about. Application packages that contain classified will not receive consideration. So make sure, obviously you're going to need to make sure that your resume does not contain classified information or even allude to the fact that there's classification in there or classified information in there. So make sure that you know what your classification guide says and do not put classified or anything near classified information inside your resume on the unclassified system. Down here it says who may apply. Now remember, in Objective 6, all we're looking at is the Overview tab. So in this Overview tab, it's set up here who may apply, U.S. citizens and status candidates. Now, still within the Overview tab, we look further down. Now here it also explains who may apply, but in more detail. So applicants who meet one of the employment authority categories below are eligible to apply for this job. So here is where you would want to research. Click each one of these links and research which one you qualify under. And then it's going to ask you during the application process which one you qualify under so you'll know which one to click. But you need to do your research ahead of time to figure out which one you qualify. Army DSIP's positions apply to veteran preference to preference eligible candidates as defined by section. And it's obviously worth looking at these sections. I always recommend, most of these are all unclassified instructions that you can find obviously on the internet and read through those so you're smart on it. They put it in the vacancy announcement so you can understand it and know what they're referencing when they say that something is required, or the policy or instruction that they're following. So it behooves you to take that instruction, search for it, read it, and understand it in detail, the same as the HR office and hiring manager have to. This is a career position, 35, and it's a term position. So again, it's reminding everyone that this is a term position, that if you're a permanent employee, you may apply for this position, but you will be converted to a term appointment. The term position may be extended for up to 5 years, and the position may be converted to a permanent position. So if that's a risk you want to take to get to Alabama, let's say, then this would be a great job. But if it's not a risk you want to take because of the unknowns, then this may not be the best job for you. Travel required, occasional travel, temporary duty, 25% or less. So if that's acceptable to you, relocation authorized, yes. So it doesn't matter the strategy, doesn't matter if you put your current address or maybe the address in Alabama. Well, I would still put the address in Alabama. It's a strategy. If my family lived there. Now, I'm not going to put a P.O. box. I'm not going to create a mailbox address or anything like that in Alabama. I'm not going to put a fictitious a fictitious physical address. I'll continue to put my own. However, if by chance I have family there, then I want to put my family address there versus the one I'm currently in. Relocation authorized. Permanent change of station, PCS, may be offered and is subject to availability of funds. Key requirements. We'll perform some overtime and drug testing. So in the overview tab, it kind of describes the general qualifications in order to apply for this position. I normally don't let any of this scare somebody into not applying. You really need to read further into the vacancy announcement to determine whether you're qualified to apply or not.